From victory streaks in poker.
That is one of the great bluffs in the history of high-stakes poker. What a move.
To baccarat cheating allegations.
Could you run a bar? Is it physically impossible? It's physically impossible. Unless you're doing something.
Phil Ivey might have pulled the biggest cheating scandal in casino history.
And the casino agreed to these requests.
The casinos agreed to every request made.
This is the guy who used the casino's own rules against them. If you're not a poker fan, you probably haven't heard of him. But in gambling circles, Phil Ivey is the Ronaldo of poker and baccarat.
Who's a player that you looked up to when you were starting out?
Well, there's a few, but like I grew up with a guy named Phil Ivey.
The main reason? This guy has won 10 World Series of Poker bracelets and a World Poker Tour title. If you're not familiar with how impressive that is, just imagine being in a blender with 7,000 to 8,000 of the best players from around the world, battling for 5 to 6 days straight, and still coming out on top.
How hard is it to win the main event of the World Series of Poker?
So the main event of the World Series of Poker is the hardest event to win, simply because of the sheer size of it.
So, how did a guy this talented let himself end up in the world's greatest casino controversy of the century? Here's the answer. Borgata's biggest hater. There's this thing called edge sorting. It's the trick Phil Ivey and his other accomplice used to pull off that insane $10 million win. And so, what exactly is edge sorting? Edge sorting is a mind-boggling technique that lets you exploit tiny flaws in the way cards are printed to gain an advantage over other players. By observing, learning, and exploiting subtle, unintentional differences on the backs of the cards being dealt.
How hard is it to win the main event of the World Series of Poker?
So the main event of the World Series of Poker is the hardest event to win.
Imagine knowing what card your opponent is about to get, not by cheating outright, but by exploiting a design flaw. That's some Sherlock shenanigan going on, if you ask me.
A lot of landmines, and frankly, there are so many players that you've not played with before, too. You play these high roller events, like these super ones, you get 30, 40 people, you know everybody.
That's right, guys. A sword is only as good as its wielder, and only a good bluffer can catch on to others' bluffs. But how did Ivey become this good at catching on? Well, you see, it's in the blood. Phil Ivey's poker talents didn't just appear out of nowhere. He's been honing these gambler skills since the ripe age of 8 years old.
He learned a lot indeed. His grandfather introduced him to poker at the age of 8.
Grandpa Phil quickly realized Ivey was awakening his poker potential, so he tried to throw him off by cheating. But that only made Phil sharper. He learned to watch every move, every twitch, every glance, spotting scammers. He had been blessed by the gambling gods with ultra instinct. Trying to break into those tight poker circles wasn't easy. The dude had to use a fake ID just to get through the door.
He was heading down to Atlantic City on the weekends.
I think I was 15, 16, somewhere around there.
And you're supposed to be how old?
21.
In 2000, Phil won his first World Series of Poker bracelet. Later, he jumped into online poker, and yep, that turned out to be a smart move too. A few years later, it brought us to Bargota, with Phil Edge sorting a baccarat game. Baccarat, the game at the center of it all. It's a simple card game where you're basically betting on which hand will be closer to 9 instead of 21, the players or the bankers. Cards are dealt, and the rules decide if a third card gets drawn. But the players themselves don't make those calls. No bluffing, no strategy wars like poker. Baccarat is actually considered one of the toughest games to beat in a casino, but some players are cleverer than that. Advantage plays like edge sorting are typically considered illegal among casinos. Phil, however, politely disagrees alongside other professional gamblers.
Phil Ivey has won over $21 million in official poker tournaments during his career.
But who's really in the right?
Part of his advantage play strategy.
Correct.
Does that sound reasonable?
It's exactly what it was.
So at the end of the day, did Phil Ivey do anything illegal in your mind?
Truth is, there are supporters on both sides. Some say what Phil pulled was straight up illegal. Others argue and call it cheating, supporting the house. Which, personally, doesn't make sense to me why anyone would support that. God, the poor casinos. Think of the casinos. Give me a break. Anyways, so what happened in Borgata? Phil is not your average gambler. He's a high roller who plays by his own rules. Literally. High rollers get extra perks from the casinos, and Ivey used this favor to the max. When he sat down at the baccarat table, he wasn't just dealing cards, he was also calling the shots.
I requested an Asian dealer.
And the reason you wanted an Asian deal?
A Mandarin-speaking dealer? Check.
I felt more comfortable with the Asian dealer. My companion was Asian.
A trusted sidekick at the table? Absolutely.
Okay. Why did you want that particular shuffle machine?
Because I wanted the cards to remain in a certain order.
And they agreed to that?
And they agreed to that, yeah.
And the jewel in the crown, a very specific brand of playing cards with a tiny, irregular pattern on the back. Sure, why not? UN freaking believable. It's like the casinos purposefully laid their head down in the altar, waiting for Phil to swing his machete. They should have seen it coming. Or maybe they did. Because some people speculated that the real scandal started here. You see, when a high-limit player walks into a casino, it's like a flashing neon sign for the staff. Shift managers alert each other, table games management gets the rundown, they know what game, what limits, and any special requests are coming down the pipe. So, is it really that surprising that the casino let Phil request a specific color of cards? Not at all. But is it fishy that they were ignorant that Phil's partner was a known advantage player? Hell yeah, it is. That alone should have set off alarm bells everywhere. There should have been a floor supervisor and a pit boss, and at least one of them fluent in Mandarin. But instead, the casinos let it slide and waited for the play to unfold, knowing they might have a chance to use the legal ace up their sleeve to chase Phil down later. And we all know having a chance is a gamble. That's low, even for a casino house. Battling Borgata. One reason Borgata's convinced Phil Ivey has the cash to pay up is because he's pulled the same edge-sorting stunt at other casinos too. Take Crockford's Casino in London, for example. He raked in nearly $12 million there.
He made him look bad. You know, he played him for a chump. You know, and they looked at it and they said, oh shit, what are we gonna do?
Still, that hasn't stopped him. The casino said, hey, we caught you cheating, and Phil went, oh yeah, and then started the 10-year-long battle of the courts. Till 2020, Phil remained a thorn in the side of both Crockford's and Borgata, but the dealers were ready to go down fighting. At first, the casino paid Phil his winnings, but then they filed a lawsuit to get that money back. That's why Phil stayed away from the WSOP for a few years. He wasn't about to play when a legal battle was hanging over him.
Once you get cheater next to your name, especially in my business, which is the business of gambling, it's really bad. You know what I mean? That's the worst thing that you could be labeled as.
In an interview, Phil was asked, the casinos are saying that there is an implied contract, an agreement between the player, the advantage player, you and the house, that you're going to play by fair rules, and that the fact that you did not divulge that the cards had a defect in effect was illegal and improper, you broke that implied contractual agreement. To which Phil's answer was simple, I disagree.
Cheating is using a device or using having information available that both parties aren't privy to. Then that could be considered cheating.
He goes on to say, card counting or edge sorting or sequencing, it's perfectly legal play. After the casino won the case and secured a judgment, Phil discovered something harsh at his next tournament cash. He wasn't getting paid. The court order was holding his money hostage. Now, riddle me this, chat. Isn't it bizarre that the casinos even agreed to his terms or overlooked the known advantage player he was there with? I mean, this wasn't some unknown Chinese lady he waltzed in with. Chung Yin's son was banned from like 30 casinos, bro. I mean, even an 8-year-old would catch on. Here's what I think happened. The UK's oldest casino handed Phil a perfect double-edged sword to play with, basically letting him edge sort knowingly. If Ivey won, they could sue him and avoid paying out. If he lost, well, then he just lost. Either way, it was a win-win for the casinos. That's exactly what those Dr. Doofenshmirtz reincarnates did. They bluffed a fold, and Phil was made to walk the plank.